Hello my darks, it's the Dark Author here, and it's finally time once again everyone. Let's rank some more creepypasta retakes, and which one is in my crosshairs this time around? It is none other than the Grieving. I know this one in particular has been requested a few times, and all my other ranking videos on retakes, absolutely phenomenal in terms of support. Seriously, I can't thank you all enough. But let's get straight into this. How are we doing this? It's simple. I'm coming at you guys with 4 categories for how we're going to rank these videos. The first category is the visuals. So how well the animation looks, how scary it is, everything like that. Next up we have the sound effects. Think the music, the scary sounds, everything you know and love about horror. How well do these retakes convey that? That's what this ranking is for. Thirdly, we have the atmosphere. Now this is all about the vibes, guys. The horror. Does it really suck you into the experience of the grieving? Does it really leave a lasting impact? That's what the atmosphere category is. And finally, we have originality. And also something to note. I'm going to be focusing less on how accurate and faithful this is to the original Grieving, and instead just focus on how well it is as its own video. Enjoying just how well these guys put a unique spin on things. And those are all 4 of our categories for how we're going to rank these videos. Once again everybody, we have to just give a massive round of applause to my friend Summit for helping me out with every single one of these rankings. This man is an absolute legend, and none of this would have been possible without him. So everybody go to the comment sections and just type Summit is the GOAT. Hashtag GOATSummit. That's what we're going to do here, everybody. But without wasting any more time, let's get straight into these rankings. There's going to be a lot of them. Coming in at number 20, we have Nilhan's version. For the visuals, it gets a 0 out of 5. This is really because there is basically nothing original about this version. There's no actual animations. The footage is just stolen from other sources. On top of that, it just adds really unnecessary filters, static, and just random gratuitous jump scares. It just makes it even worse. Sound effects scores a 0 out of 5. This is simply because of the obnoxious and annoying screaming and the crying sounds. They're actually just stock sounds. Couple that with some loud transitions, static, reusing music from other remakes. It just makes the sound effects not really that enjoyable. But that's not the worst part. Believe it or not, Nilhan's version has a Oswald sound effect from Five Nights at Treasures Island.
Don't listen. Have mercy on the witnesses. I only ask for mercy. Have mercy on the witnesses. I only ask for mercy.
I mean, do I need to say more? The atmosphere also follows suit, getting a 0 out of 5. This is because it doesn't feel like a Grieving video. Like, this isn't even due to, you know, following the original story or being faithful. It just doesn't feel like how other remakes or retakes feel about the Grieving. It feels, honestly, like a YouTube jump scare video from 2009. And unfortunately, we mean that in the worst possible ways. And finally, for the originality, it gets a 0.5 out of 5. While being hands down the worst Grieving retake I've ever seen, it's kind of technically still its own thing. Maybe, barely, but I mean, other than that, it just steals footage from other remakes, but I guess just in the way it arranges things, it's somewhat original. The final score is 0.5 out of 20. We don't mean these videos for hate, by the way. It's just lo and behold the worst one. The next 2 entries are tied. Let's see which ones are next. Taking number 19, we have Darting Dash's version. For the visuals, it takes home a 0 out of 5. This is simply because of the extremely low quality with the scenes transitioning. And also, again, just like the previous entry, there's no actual animations within it. It just feels kind of like a cheap slideshow, if you know what I mean. Also, that Darwin screenshot. I mean, guys, come on. For the sound effects, it takes home a 0.5 out of 5. It's still pretty annoying, loud, stock, and reused sound effects as we've seen before. However, it's definitely a little bit more bearable than Nilhan's version. For the atmosphere, it only scores a 0 out of 5. This is just because it's just kind of all over the place, to be honest. It barely feels like a Grieving retake or remake at all. Maybe kind of like an alpha version of it at best. But in general, it's just not very good at conveying the atmosphere of a true Grieving video. Finally, for the originality, it gets a 1.5 out of 5. Scenes with Gumball and Darwin seem to be original, so you have to give credit where credit is due. But otherwise, it just reuses the same sound effects, and it is way too short to give anything higher. So that's why it earns a 1.5 out of 5, for a final score of 2 out of 20. So which version did this one tie with? It's none other than Zach's version. I'm gonna guess that's what they meant by ZQCH for Zach. The visuals? 0 out of 5. The entire thing, literally all of it, is just a slideshow of screenshots with static put over them. No kind of animation, no real original drawing, just a slideshow. Also, that Kindmaster logo, that is a huge no-no. You don't want to have that. It ruins the immersion. For these sound effects, it only gets a 1 out of 5. It's an alright choice of music. But that's really all I can say. It lacks most of the other sound effects in the Grieving, which could really help boost up the points for the sound effects. Unfortunately, it misses out on those things, that's why it's so low. It really could have had a lot more to it. The atmosphere scores a 1 out of 5. Unlike the previous entries, you have to give it some kind of credit, because it at least tries to feel like a Grieving video. However, it still doesn't mean that it's a little hard to take seriously. The originality? I mean, you know it gets a 0 out of 5. Once again, it's just a slideshow of stolen Grieving screenshots to make a video, quote unquote. Even Nilhan did something like that. For a final score of 2 out of 20. The two tied entries were just kind of the same, they could really go in any order. I just did this order because of the heck of it. But let's go to the number 17 spot. At number 17, we have Atzidanjo's version. Hopefully I got your name correct. The visuals? Score a 0 out of 5. It does have some slightly better editing, but it's still very poorly made. The static is also way too distracting to be enjoyable, amongst other things. Hence why it scored so low. The sound effects is 0.5 out of 5. It has pretty much the exact same problems as Darting Dash's version, so I'm not really going to repeat myself here. For the atmosphere, it gets a 1 out of 5. It's honestly kind of a mix of trying to be a Grieving video and a jumpscare galore video, and as expected, it just doesn't work. One way I like to describe this video is kind of like divorced parents. They may work great alone, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't stay a million miles away from each other. So a nice effort, but I don't think it was worth it. The originality, it gets a 1 out of 5. Scenes with Richard and Nicole seem to be original, but everything else is stolen screenshots, so there really isn't that much to talk about, for a final score of 2.5 out of 20. Let's continue on. At number 16 we have Ima's version. For the visuals, it gets a 1.5 out of 5. Well, there are a few points I have about the visuals. It uses quite a bit of reused Grieving content from other videos of the sort. Not only that, the original content in the video, like Gumball in the classroom I think, it's just static with no changing face, so it just kinda kills the appeal behind it. Also, the things Ima drew doesn't really mesh well with the other bits of animation or drawings, making it painfully stand out. The sepia tone at the start and the static are quite decent. Also, do not get me started on the cringy image at the end. It's very silly. It was a nice effort to try and do some horror, but you should avoid doing things like this in the future. For the sound effects, it gets a 1 out of 5. The sound effects, the dialogue, and other audio is just bad. There's really no way around it. Richard and Nicole sobbing on the sofa just doesn't have any of the punch, pain, or sorrow that it really should. And when Principal Brown begins to talk to them, you can barely make out what they're even saying. And it is way too loud. This is why it only gets a 1. The atmosphere gets itself a 1.5 out of 5. The atmosphere is ruined by a lot of things. I hate to be that guy, I really do, but there is really no point putting a warning at the start of a video. It just kills everything. The whole point of the Grieving, and this is not again just referring to the original story, this is just in general, it's supposed to be a surprise episode. Think other stories like, the hijackings of SpongeBob episodes. Hijackers don't put warnings at the start of their videos when they're about to play them. It's supposed to be scary, add some shock factor into it, really put you on your toes. So adding a warning at the start kinda kills that. For the originality, it gets a 2 out of 5. That being said, there are some things to talk about here with originality. Despite me not enjoying the inclusion of a warning screen, it is one of only 2 remakes, I believe, to have a warning screen at the start. Also, this might be the only Grieving remake to feature video game footage for when they find Anais and Darwin. It's kinda jarring, but you have to appreciate the originality. All of that said leaves Ima's version at a 6 out of 20. Let's go on to the number 15 spot. At number 15, we have Slash's version. For the visuals, it gets a 2 out of 5. I'll be real with this one. I think that the art used is also very jarring, because of how much it doesn't mesh well with the other visuals. Furthermore, the static used is way too thick. It's very hard to tell what's actually going on in the images, because the static is clouding everything up. Not only that, the image of Principal Brown is very bad. It doesn't fit the whole screen. It's like the aspect ratio just doesn't match the others, so it feels noticeably out of place. I think they should have found an image of Principal Brown with the whole background included. Also, don't get me started on the ending. While unique, I'm personally just not a fan of it. The sound effects only scores a 1.5 out of 5. There is no voice acting in this video of any kind, which drags the sound effects down quite a lot for me. On top of that, The actual sound effects used aren't the greatest. My favourite one is actually the bird sound effect they use when Anais is in the woods. I just wish a little bit more was done for the sound effects personally. For the atmosphere, it gets a 1.5 out of 5. The atmosphere of this Grieving retake is definitely there, but it's heavily hindered. Again, the visuals are very hard to make out. On top of that, the still pictures used for the characters weren't the greatest. Like when Richard is crying with Nicole and Granny Jojo comforting him. It's a very silly picture, and it takes you out of the horror vibe immediately. Also, Granny Jojo is smiling? I guess she started her true villain arc wanting her grandkids dead now apparently? I don't know, I think they could have used a better image. The originality of this video is 2.5 out of 5. The highlight is for sure the originality. This is the only Grieving retake out there to have the characters be in the woods on a paintball game. Now this is actually a pretty interesting take on the normal formula, but I kind of feel a little divided on it personally. Also, the inclusion of the clown. Apparently that's kind of a new thing that people are trying to use the clown more. I do know a few remakes or retakes that do the same thing with the clown, but again I'm kind of divided on it. It's not the best, it's not the worst either, it's kind of middle of the road for me. Leaving this version with a final score of 7.5 out of 20. Now let's continue. Taking number 14, we have SML Archives version. However, me and Summit must preface this by saying, we only say this loosely, as there's a chance that this video is actually stolen from another creator. But we couldn't find any versions of this video as an earlier date or anything, so for the sake of this video we'll just call this SML Archives version. For the visuals, it's a 2.5 out of 5. The visuals of this one are actually pretty solid. It has a nice dark tone, and you can really tell that this is an old recording. However, I will say that the volume button and recording symbol on the right is very distracting. This is the main reason why me and Summit suspect it might actually be from another person that SML Archive has stolen from. It might not be, but it's something to point out. The sound effects, it only gets a 1 out of 5. The sound effects in this video aren't good. For one, again, there is no voice acting in this video. Richard's crying is a very bad stock sound. It's the same one used in those crappy mobile game ads. It's also missing the loud door slam of Nicole coming in, so that's a loss for a very good scary sound effect. Also, the sound used when Principal Brown is talking sounds very similar to something out of SM.AVI. In general, just not a fan. The atmosphere gets a 2.5 out of 5. The atmosphere for this one is good. Again, I love the dark tone and vibe it gives off. The visuals are nice and easy to make out. The actual art that wasn't taken from other sources is pretty good. Also, Gumball hanging around at the end, that's actually a pretty nice bit of art and animation, so well done. As for the originality, it gets a 2 out of 5. The originality on this one is very mixed. Some of the drawings are done originally, but some are taken from other places. And I really wish the creator could have spent a little bit more time drawing original stuff for this. If they really did the animation for Gumball at the end, surely they could just draw a still picture of Anais, right? Criticisms leave this version at an 8 out of 20. Not bad, but it definitely could have been better. Let's go on to number 13. At number 13, we have the Great Laws version. In terms of the visuals, It's a 2.5 out of 5. I think the visuals actually aren't half bad on this one. The art actually looks like it belongs for the most part. There are a few things I don't like, however. Like the blacked out eyes for Nicole and Richard. I just think that's trying a little too hard to be scary. But apart from that, I think the visuals work just fine for this video. Except for the phone bit at the end. We caught you, Great Law. You just gotta edit that stuff out, my friend. It definitely gets you. Sound effects. It only gets a 1 out of 5. Now this is for sure the weakest point of this whole video. The problem is, there's basically no sound effects. There's no crying, there's no dialogue or talking, it's just empty space. And the sound effects that are used are just static and some music that sounds like it belongs more in some crappy analog horror. It's such a shame as well. However, the atmosphere quickly takes it back. With a score of 3 out of 5, the atmosphere is definitely the highlight of this particular retake. Static and the dark imagery used really helps sell the tone that this is a horror video. The horror aspect is very good. Also, the imagery used is delightfully creepy. Even if I'm an adult now and I don't find it frightening personally, if I was a little kid who clicked on this, I think I would be scared. So you gotta give it some praise. As for the originality, it gets a 2.5 out of 5. The originality of this one is a mixed bag. There are elements taken from other videos, notably Anais's body, but we believe the gumball at the end is original. If so, then that's very well made. Overall, it gets a final score of 9 out of 20. Not bad, the Great Law. Keep it up. Let's continue on. At number 12, we have the Eye Whisperers version. The visuals are at a 2.5 out of 5. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this is the first completely original Grieving video so far, with everything made by the original creators. In that case, it automatically gets some props. But I will say, the art style of this video isn't the greatest, and it sometimes doesn't feel fitting with the other imagery used. But you can give credit for them being original and taking the time to draw and animate all of this. For the sound effects, it only gets a 1.5 out of 5. The sound effects for this one aren't the best. The crying for Richard and Nicole feels very suppressed and honestly kind of weak. It doesn't feel like they are truly sad enough. Also, I don't like the music used in the intro. I think it's way over the top. Finally, there is no voice acting, so automatically that makes it knock down a bit. For the atmosphere, it gets a 2.5 out of 5. The atmosphere for this one definitely feels fitting. I personally think that it really could have been a little darker and maybe have some kind of static or VHS filter on it. In general, it's pretty to the book when it comes to a Grieving video. For the originality, it gets a 3 out of 5. As I've praised several times, the originality is by far the best part. It's completely drawn by the creators, with no art taken from other people. So that's a huge step up from the others on the list in my opinion. But it's a little too safe, if you know what I mean. It doesn't really try to experiment with the formula of the Grieving. It just stays within its lane. While not inherently bad, I wish it could have done a little bit more. Final score, 9.5 out of 20. At number 11, we have Chilling in the Zones version. For the visuals, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. I quite enjoyed the visuals in this one. It's nice and dark without being so hard to see. And the imagery chosen for Anais and Darwin is good. Some may complain about it being blurred out, but honestly I really don't have a problem with it. It kind of reminds me of a police report or something along those lines. It's delightfully creepy. For the sound effects, 0 out of 5. There's not much to talk about cause there literally is no sound. The only audio in the video is the intro, and that's it. Disappointment, considering the rest of the video is really good. For the atmosphere, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. Now this is what I call a good atmosphere. It feels really spot on for a Gumball episode. Furthermore, the images used for Darwin and Anais are scary because of the blur. I find it scary because it leaves everything up to the viewer's imagination, and you gotta give it some credit for that. The originality also gets a 3.5 out of 5. Now this is a big point of highlight. I'm fairly certain most of it, if not all of it, is original. Also, it is the only one of the versions I've seen to blur out Anais and Darwin's body, and I actually think it's a good addition, so you gotta give that some props for the original stuff it added in, because it meshes so well, leaving it with a half-perfect score of 10 out of 20. Good version overall, Chilling in the Zone. Keep it up. We're now entering the top 10. This is where the retakes really spike in quality. So let's see who made the top 10. Kicking off the top 10, we have Gigi's version. The visuals, 3 out of 5. Pretty good animations all around. However, it feels inconsistent at times. Take for example the shots of Anais and Darwin's body. They're strangely high quality if you compare it to the rest of the video. It also uses sprites from the original show, so yeah. Another point of contention about this, I'm not a fan of how the aspect ratio of this video is very inconsistent. It jumps around constantly, and it's jarring. The sound effects, it gets a 2 out of 5. Not the worst, but the annoying analog horror voice, the sudden loud sounds, and the unnecessary jump scares really lets this one down.
Searching for Anais and Darwin for a few days. They have been found, but unfortunately, they had not made it.
Again, I think analog horror should really stay away from the Grieving, because it hinders the final product. The atmosphere, it gets a 2.5 out of 5. Again, the analog horror voice is mostly why I can't take this one seriously. This is the other version to have a warning at the start, and we've already established why I think it's a bad inclusion. Finally, what the hell is this thing? It's so bad it actually made me laugh on the first watch. Again, I can kinda see where they were coming from in adding this, but I don't think it was a good addition. For the originality, it gets a 3.5 out of 5. This is the highlight. Most of everything is original. I appreciate that Gumball isn't the killer this time around. However, I really wish they would actually elaborate on who the killer was. Also, it's the only Grieving video that I know of to show a funeral scene that actually shows Gumball's body. Now, there is a certain other retake further on down the list that has a funeral scene, but it doesn't show Gumball. Overall, this version scores an 11 out of 20. Good job, GG, keep it up. Now let's go to the number 9. At number 9, we have Lost Episode Archives version. The visuals, 3 out of 5. The visuals are actually solid and unique, but the static is way too distracting, to the point you can't even make out what's going on. Also, this is more of a personal gripe on my end, which you all can disagree with if you wish. But I don't like this new recent thing of adding in the pilot sprites. because the Grieving was way before the pilot was even in consideration. Also, this will be the only time I will compare originality based on the original story, because Richard is always in the Grieving, so they actually don't include Richard in this version, they replace him with some kind of other blue cat character. Again, this is more of a personal thing, but it just hinders it for me. The sound effects, 2 out of 5. While better than in GG's version, the AI voice here is still bad. Especially Principal Brown.
Nicole, listen. I'm really sorry. But they were found.
It sounds absolutely nothing like him whatsoever. Furthermore, the sound is very muffled, so the crying and other dialogue is kind of hard to hear. But of course, how could we forget the random and annoying inclusion of Five Nights at Treasure's Island sound effects? Yes, there's not one, but 2 creepypasta remakes of The Grieving to have Five Nights at Treasure's Island sound effects. It's really not that hard to make or find a creepy laugh for a video, and this inclusion is very bad in my opinion. The atmosphere, however, is good, at a 3.5 out of 5. A pretty believable version because of how low quality everything is, but the static ruins it a lot, because you really can't take in all the horror because it's blocking everything. For the originality, it once again takes a 3.5 out of 5. Again, the artwork is original and completely unique. Not to mention, I think this is one of the first Grieving videos to actually feature voice acting, and while it might not be good, you have to give it some credit. Leaving this version with a 12 out of 20. Not bad. At number 8, we have Augusto Amin's version. The visuals, 4 out of 5. Very clean artwork and animation. While not being my favourite, there's nothing really to criticise here. It's just pretty darn good. The sound effects, 2.5 out of 5. The AI voice here is better than Lost Episode Archives version, but overall still just average.
Wait, what? Are you fucking serious? You should have fined them, you piece of furry little slug shit. I won't be that pretty, you bastard.
Calm down, Mrs. Watterson.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to blush all like that.
Your children were found, but they weren't found alive.
It feels very choppy and doesn't really mesh well. Also, believe it or not, there's actually a small sound from Me Channel. Yeah, that Me Channel from the Wii. Take a listen for yourself. I caught you, Lost Episode Archive, trying to sneak in a Me Channel music. Also, if this is unintentional, that's just hilarious. The atmosphere, 3.5 out of 5. Once again, pretty believable. Because of the animation style, the vibe, everything's all set up. But the AI and the ending does knock it down a peg. Finally, for the originality, 3 out of 5. All the sprites are original, but otherwise it just follows what most other Grieving remakes do. Apart from the ending, which I really don't think fits. So I can't give it the highest score, but I can't really criticize much either. A final score of 13 out of 20. Good work, Augusto. I expect more from you, pal. At number 7, we have Mation 8005's version. For the visuals, 4.5 out of 5, baby. Actually one of my favourite animations from these remakes. It fits perfectly with the show, while still feeling uncanny and low budget. So I gotta say, you did a darn good job, Mation. The sound effects, 2.5 out of 5. There aren't really that much sound effects used in this video, including no voice acting unfortunately. But the ones that are used, at the very least aren't annoying and they fit the tone, so average rating. The atmosphere, 4 out of 5. Just because of the animation, it carries the overall vibe to the top. But I do wish there was voice acting included. That could have got this video a perfect 5 out of 5. But alas, it's just not quite there. For the originality, 3.5 out of 5. It does follow most of the formula that other retakes do, but there are some cool things added, like the police phone call, which I like. So I'll give a slightly higher rating. Overall final score, 14.5 out of 20. Who's at number 6? None other than... Lost Media Archives version. For the visuals, 4 out of 5. Almost perfect visuals like Mation's version, and some great animations, especially the forest scene. However, the only thing holding it back is some of the editing is just pretty sloppy. Also hyper-realistic gumball. Stop including that, it's just silly, guys. The sound effects, 3 out of 5. Actually, really great AI voice used here, although I would prefer original voice acting.
What? What the fuck do you mean missing? Those are our fucking kids, you bitch! What kind of fucking principal are you? How the hell does a principal lose track of 2 students?
Mrs. Watterson, you didn't let me finish.
I don't give a shit, asshole! Find our goddamn kids right fucking now!
But it's still pretty great, especially with the echo used alongside it. What does hold it back is the loud sounds and the EAS alarm warning at the ending. For the atmosphere, 4.5 out of 5. Almost perfection when it comes to the style of poor animation, uncanny vibes, the sorrow in Nicole and Richard as their kids are dead, the forest footage, the AI voice. There's just a lot to praise. Unfortunately, it does go a bit analog horror towards the end, which I don't appreciate. I think they should keep that stuff separate. And for the originality, 4 out of 5. Everything is original, except some of the sprites that are taken from the show, so not really much to say. A final score of 15.5 out of 20. Good job, Lost Media Archive, keep it up. We're finally there, guys. You know what this is? This is the top 5. This is the best of the best when it comes to creepypasta retakes of the Grieving. Let's kick off the top 5 with... the Fire Meteor Guy's version. I know he'll be watching this, so hi Fire Meteor Guy, your video's great buddy. But let's go and review it properly. Visuals, 4 out of 5. Really great visuals all around. And amazing animation. The death of Darwin and Anais go especially hard. However, my only gripe is the usage of Principal Brown's early design. It feels really out of place when everybody else is in the normal show's design, but just poor quality. That's about all I can criticize though. It's really good. The sound effects, 4 out of 5. I believe this is the first video on this list with voice acting that's not AI generated, which you have to appreciate. And while it's not the best voice acting overall, it's still good.
Mrs. and Mr. Watterson, thank you for coming. Anais and Darwin have been missing since school lunch.
Really? You don't even care about those kids, do you? You just sat there and did nothing about it. You have security's cameras all around the school. I can't believe you.
Please, Mrs. Watterson, calm down.
Oh, you want me to calm down? I'll only calm down when I see my kids safe. For all I know, they could be dead.
Plus the music used is very solid. For the atmosphere, 4 out of 5 again. Generally because it has such a good vibe to the Grieving, because of how low budget the animation is. But overall, I don't think it has the same feeling of sadness like Lost Media Archive and, spoiler alert, Look Inspired's version does. We'll get to that one later. And for the originality, 4 out of 5. It's the same formula of the Grieving, with some extra stuff tacked on, like the storyboard segment, Gumball seeing how his siblings died, and of course the animation for Darwin and Anais. Overall, very nice. 16 out of 20 is the final score. Great work, Fire Meteor Guy. You have some great potential, my friend, so keep doing what you're doing and keep posting. You're a good one. Just missing a bronze, we have Aisha's version. For the visuals, 5 out of 5, let's go, the first 5 out of 5. It's basically perfection. The art style fits perfectly. The animation is incredibly well done, especially with the forest part, and overall just nails the feeling that this might have actually been real. The third best overall animation. The sound effects, 3.5 out of 5. It is the only real thing holding this video back, as while I do appreciate the original voice acting and not using AI voices, I don't like the actual voice work. Principal Brown is the only one that actually sounds good. Everybody else is just kinda meh.
Watson, I'm afraid I have some upsetting news about Darwin and Anais. Both of them went missing around lunchtime. Haven't been back since.
What? Why weren't you looking after them, you puke-infested cock? Is your head so far up Simeon's ass to where you don't give a fuck about kids? Is that why your head's shaped like a dick?
Miss Watterson, please settle down and let me finish. The police are looking for them as we speak.
I don't give a fuck about what the police are doing. I want my kids safe. The police aren't doing their goddamn job.
Specifically Nicole, who just makes the whole scene harder to take seriously. Like, you can't expect me to feel the anger in Nicole as she's yelling at Principal Brown, while at the same time expecting her to scream, "You bloody wanker!" or something alongside those lines. Also, Richard's voice is way too dumb. He's so flanderized it's almost cringe-inducing.
Wait a minute, I thought I saw Gumball get on the bus this morning. I saw him get on!
The atmosphere? It gets a 4.5 out of 5. While, again, the voice acting does prevent it from having the perfect vibe, it's still basically an amazing despairful scenario that the original story failed to pull off. So you have to give Aisha some recognition for being able to pull that off. The originality? 4 out of 5. Its originality is pretty much exactly what I said about Fire Meteor Guy's version. So for the sake of not repeating myself, I'm not going to elaborate. Final score? 17 out of 20. Yeah, you guys could see why this one is rated so high. Aisha, you're great. Keep it up. Taking the bronze medal is Vibing Leaf's version. Yes guys, it's finally happened! Vibing Leaf actually made it to one of my ranking videos. It's not that I don't think Vibing Leaf's versions are good enough, it's just for the previous ranking videos, the criteria didn't match. But for this version it does. For the visuals, 4 out of 5. While the animation is still amazing, I do wish it fitted with the art style just a little more. The monster in particular really looks out of place. While cool and scary additions, I just don't think it fits the Grieving in general. The sound effects? 4 out of 5. Overall, not really much to talk about. Just some soundtracks here and there. It's not a perfect score, but what is used really fits perfectly, so I have to give some props for that. Especially the sounds when the characters are getting attacked. And for the ending, which is really spot on. The atmosphere? 5 out of 5. Definitely my favourite one in terms of the atmosphere. It shows perfectly what the original story should have aimed to do. Gumball being depressed, Anais and Darwin's death, and especially the gravestone scene hit very hard, and overall it's just great stuff. Originality? 5 out of 5. Everything is original, except for a few flashback clips, but we're not going to count those. It's got an original story, original music, it's just perfect, nothing to criticise. Leaving Vibing Leaf very strong, with a final score of 18 out of 20. I don't know if you'll watch this, but if you do, hey Vibing Leaf, your retakes are very, very good. You help bring life into the creepypasta community, and I want to personally thank you for everything you do and what you keep doing. So keep on making your videos, man, and keep on impressing us. You did great. So let's go to the number 2 spot. Taking the silver, we have Look Inspired's version. Visuals? 5 out of 5. By far the best animation in all of these remakes. The sprites of the characters, the editing, the animations, the jump scares, the death of all 3 children, the battle at the end. It's just overall, absolute chef's kiss. Sound effects? 4 out of 5. The sound helps with the video for the most part. However, some sounds are a little too loud and sudden. So I can't give it a perfect score even if I wanted to. For the atmosphere though, 4.5 out of 5. I do really love the story about revenge. However, I prefer the bittersweet endings just a touch more. Still, the vibe definitely stands out from every other remake, so I have to praise it. Originality? 5 out of 5. Not much to add here. Look Inspired didn't have to go so hard with the story and the animation, but we're glad they did. A final score of 18.5 out of 20. Very, very good job, Look Inspire. You completely blew me away with how well you did this. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. But anyways, who is the champion of the Grieving retakes in our opinion? Who has that gold medal, everybody? Give me a drum roll. It's none other than... Denise Kazui's version. Also, we've made up. We're cool now. Let's get into this, everybody. For the visuals, 5 out of 5. While not as good as Look Inspired's in my opinion, it's still absolutely phenomenal. The low budget animation, especially for Anais and Darwin, the editing of the clips on top of the episode and the glitching that happens on the screen, it makes the whole thing very uncomfortable and very realistic. For the sound effects, 4.5 out of 5. Like with Look Inspire, some sounds do get a bit irritating, which is one of the only critiques I have with this video.
Mrs. Watterson, the gumbo gets the job reserved for the children.
Excuse me, I'm thank you, lazy fat ass.
Otherwise, you have to commend the voice acting. It's by far the best one. For the atmosphere, 5 out of 5. By complete definition of a Grieving video, this one just takes the cake. The first time I watched it, I was actually shocked and unnerved. Actually might be one of the few creepypasta retakes that actually managed to do that. So it just shows that it's the best. Originality? 5 out of 5. While it doesn't have its original story like Vibing Leaf or Look Inspired does, the extra details that are shown on the screen are the high points. They're creative, creepy, and make this version stand out from anything else. With a final score of 19.5 out of 20, everybody put it together and give her a round of applause. Denise Kazui's version is the number 1 for the Grieving retakes. Oh yeah. Anyways, that's it everybody. I hope you all enjoyed this ranking video. If you did, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, go check out some of my other content, and comment down below what you thought of the list. As for the like goal, let's go for something fucking bonkers. Let's go for 150 likes on this video. I know we can do it everybody. If you get this to 150 likes, I will make another ranking video. Again, massive thank you to Summit for helping me out, and most importantly, thank all of you. You guys are the ones keeping me going and keeping me posting. The support for these videos is brilliant. I love it all. I love you guys. You're the best. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, my dorks.